My name is Asia Sampson, and today on Baptism Overland, we're going to talk about how overlanding helps you with hurricane prepping, or prepping for just 2020. Oh man, look at this. Oh man, did the dumpster get blown over there?
Oh my god.
The dumpster got blown from there to, it was over there.
Oh wow.
Oh my god.
Flood.
That's gonna stink.
Flood.
We have a lot of mud and dirt. Here's our garage. I don't know if the bike is okay, but everything here is, I mean, a lot of cleanup. That's where I film my videos. Here's my deck and it's gone. Look at that. I mean, it just collapsed. Dude, the whole thing is collapsed. So I'm doing this video because if you've been watching the news, then you'll know that about a couple of weeks ago, the Gulf Coast was hit by Hurricane Sally. Now, living in Northwest Florida, we didn't even think it was going to come this way. The projection was supposed to go towards New Orleans, but then it just stood there, like it just spun out in the Gulf, not moving at all. I think it was going 1-2 miles an hour. At one point, it was just stationary. And when it decided to start moving again, it decided it's going to double back and come towards us. So we, at first, weren't even going to evacuate. Like, storm's not coming this way, we should be fine, we'll have some rain. But when we started to see that it was going to come this way, then, that's when we decided, all right, let's get a move on and let's get out of here. So we packed up the Jeep and we evacuated to a friend's house. The funny thing is that as I was packing up our stuff, like emergency stuff, clothes, while I was packing all that stuff, I realized, why do I not have a lot here? And then I realized it's because most of my stuff was already on the Jeep because we've been overlanding and doing things like that. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool that I barely had to bring anything from the house. And all I had to do was prep a couple of little things and get in the Jeep and go. I wanted to do this video because I really wanted to illustrate the type of things that we have as overlanders that will also work when it comes to prepping for any kind of emergency. So I'm really glad that we evacuated because our area was hit pretty hard. When they reopened the island and allowed us to come back on to check out our property, I was glad to see that the house was still intact. The roof didn't blow off, the windows didn't blow out. I mean, we have hurricane rated windows, which really won't help if you have projectiles coming at it at 100 miles an hour. But for rain and wind, it holds up pretty well. Our house are on stilts, right? The stilts pretty much helps us because we know that a storm surge is probably going to come through. And we did get storm surge. 2 more feet and it would have gone into the house. So I'm glad that it didn't. It did, however, destroy our deck. Our deck collapsed and our garage flooded. And so I had to do a lot of cleanup, take everything out of the garage and cleaned it all up and then cleaned the inside of the garage. And then while I had everything out, I decided, you know what, I'm just going to epoxy the floors and make it really nice. For the last 2 weeks, I've just been doing this project of getting this garage back in order. And if you'll notice, my motorcycle is not behind me. In all my videos, you've seen my motorcycle behind me. Well, the motorcycle was in the garage when the flood happened. But don't worry, she's okay. Now I have to clean out all the rust, clean out all the debris and then kind of clean her right back up and make her better again. I was so glad, you guys, when I got home because I'm like, man, let me empty the exhaust and make sure there's no water in the pipes. and then let me hope that she starts back up, and she did. Okay, so I know I'm going off on a tangent here. I'm sorry, please bear with me. I just really wanted to vent about the storm. But the whole purpose of this video was because the place where we evacuated to, my friend's house, is inland. And we wanted to evacuate to a place where there were less risks of flooding and storm surge. For the next couple of days after the storm hit, we were without power, obviously, and we were also without water. And I found that a lot of my overlanding tools came in really handy. So I just kind of wanted to do this video to showcase what I brought with me. Now, luckily, my friend is a prepper-ish type of person himself. So between the both of us, we had everything we needed to sustain ourselves until the power and the water came back on. So I didn't have to bring a gamut of everything with me because he had a lot of the stuff already. I just needed to bring certain things for ourselves and then contribute that. Now, let me preface first and foremost that I am not what you might call a hardcore prepper. Like, I consider myself more prepared than most because a lot of people don't think about stuff like this. But I am nowhere near like that level of like hardcore prepping. Like, I don't have a storage unit full of food and water and things like that. I mean, those are life goals. But as of right now, I don't have that much as far as preparedness. And when it comes to prepping, you really can't be prepared enough, right? Like, you'll never really finish prepping. Any prepper will tell you that, right? You'll always add to your kit, take out things from your kit. You know, you're always growing it constantly as you see fit. So I do want to say that although I consider myself somewhat prepared, I know that there are still things that I am missing. And as each storm like this passes, I am learning more and more about what I'm missing from my kit. I'm not going to talk about food and water and clothing or even your EDC, the things that you're already going to have on you. Like, common sense says that if you're going to evacuate and there's going to be a hurricane coming, then have food ready and have water and get your clothes together, like all that stuff. Like, I'm not going to go into that. That's just way too much for one video. But what I will do is talk about some of the other items that you may not have even thought about that will actually come in really handy for any kind of emergency situations. So first, let's talk about the things that are fixed on the Jeep. First one is fuel. Now, we all, as overlanders, want jerry cans. They look cool. And then you realize they come in really handy and that they're really a necessity. Because let's say, for example, you need to evacuate further away, right? You are going to take evacuation routes that, for the most part, are probably going to be backed up because there are other people trying to evacuate as well. The last thing you want to do is evacuate on like a quarter tank, because I can guarantee you that somewhere in that traffic, you're going to run out of gas. And now what are you going to do? Now you're stuck. So before you even evacuate, make sure that your gas tank is full. And then once your gas tank is full, make sure your jerry cans are full, because now you have enough fuel to at least get you to where you need to go before you can actually gas up again. Fortunately for us, we only had to drive, 20 miles? We only had to drive to our friend's house. We didn't have to take any major highways. We didn't have to go through any evacuation routes. It was simple to get there. But why do I still need fuel? Well, because let's say we need to run generators and all the gas stations are closed. Well, now at least we have gas. And the second thing that was super helpful on the Jeep that came as a complete surprise to me was the auxiliary lighting. I did rock lights, I did rear lights, I did lights on the side of the roof rack. And I just thought to myself, this is going to be really cool when we go overlanding. And then after the hurricane, power is out. You don't want to be driving around in a dark city with the lights out and not be able to see your way around. That's just dangerous. Not just because of other, motor vehicles, but you don't know what debris you might run over. Lights like that come in really handy if you want to, venture out in the dark when there's no power. And the third thing that's on my Jeep that was super helpful was having a shovel and an axe. If there were debris that we need to shovel out of the way, or mud that got stuck in front of you, then having a shovel will help you get out of that. I mean, we talk about getting out of situations like that in overlanding all the time. Well, that can happen right after a hurricane, right? There's mud everywhere. It's just nasty everywhere. Having an axe will also help you get rid of like small limbs and, small branches or things like that that you just need to chop down. It's good to have a shovel and axe on you at all times. So those things, for the most part, is what's already fixed on the Jeep. Now I'll talk about the things that are in the Jeep that is mobile, that I can take out of the Jeep and things like that, but I didn't have to pack from the house and bring it into the Jeep because it was already in there. Power. This is probably one of the most important things you're going to need. Like I said, electricity is out. and you're going to need to be able to power your devices, either your phones, so you can check things if the network is still up, radios, flashlights, things like that. You're going to need to power them up, and when the power is out, you don't want to just use up the generator, because sometimes if you have a gas generator at the house, you're going to need to use that to power the fridge, power fans. So for the smaller things that you need to recharge, have something ready. First of all, obviously, batteries. I have a kit full of miscellaneous batteries in here, everything from AA, AAA, even, C batteries, D batteries, 9 volts, they're all right here. Having a set of batteries, always good to have in your kit. Also, a reel. Now, when we go camping, and I say camping, not overlanding, when we've done camping trips, a lot of times it's a site that has power. So I bought one of these so that we can, distribute power to everyone, right? Whether it's for fans or for whatever it is that we need. But this also came in really handy for our hurricane situation, because we, had the generator running, and we were able to just plug this into the generator and then have different, appliances and things like that run off of this. Second thing is my Jackery. This Jackery has served me very, very, very well. It's the smaller one, I believe, Jackery 240, I believe, right? But we use this a lot, like during the day and nighttime. We would just charge up stuff and, phones, iPads, things like that, so my son wouldn't get bored. Obviously, you're not going to charge big things. Like, I would not waste my Jackery on charging my laptop like twice, right? I wouldn't do that. I would most likely use this for cell phones and iPads and smaller devices. If you're gonna buy a Jackery or a Goal Zero or one of those things, get a solar panel. Because here's the thing about hurricanes. Usually after the hurricane passes, it's the most brightest, most sunniest day that you will ever see, which is the oddest thing, because there's something weird about seeing destruction during such a nice day. That was pretty deep. Because it's sunny, take advantage. Now, aside from the Jackery, though, you also are going to want to have a whole bunch of battery packs with you, right? I didn't want to bring them all out because I have them scattered all over the place. It's always good to have as many of them as you possibly can, because then you can also charge your cell phones with those without having to eat up this thing. And the next thing is my emergency roadside kit. Now, as overlanders, you're probably going to have this in your rig anyway. It's stuff that, if you get in trouble, you'll be able to signal for help. But common sense says you should have this in all of your vehicles, whether you're overlanding or not. You need to have something like this in all of your vehicles. And I'll show you what's in it. First thing I have is emergency tarps. One, it can act as a blanket if someone gets cold. Now, in a hurricane situation, you're probably not going to need it for getting cold, because hurricanes tend to happen during the hot season, so you're probably not going to need it for that. But let's say you need to fix something underneath your rig, and the whole road is going to be muddy, it's going to be wet. You don't want to just get on under there and get yourself dirty. Well, throw out the tarp. So this is a mini tarp. It's not going to cover a lot, but it's enough for you to get underneath, or use this to step over certain things. So having a tarp, always good. We have flares. My wife, who works in the hospital, had to go to work, and I was very, very nervous about her driving to work. It wasn't that far away, but I mean, you're talking post-hurricane, and there's debris everywhere, and who knows if there's flooding, and she might get stuck in a flood, things like that. So having emergency flares like this, if she were to get stuck on the road somewhere, she can throw these down or signal for help. So I was so glad I had these in my emergency roadside kit, because she took the Jeep to go to her job, right? And because I'm not going to let her drive her car, I'm going to let her drive the Jeep so that she can get over certain obstacles and things like that, and then come home safely. Second thing is a tire plug kit, right? We all have one of these. I kind of want to upgrade this to like an ARB or, a Smitty-built or something like that, but I just don't find that I'm going to need to spend that kind of money yet, when, as a Jeeper, we have an extra spare anyway, right? But it's always good to have this in case you blow out 2 tires, 3 tires, whatever. This is always good to have. I just have this. It's not even open, because I hope to never have to open it. But if I needed to, it's there, and this is much, much cheaper. And then finally, my favorite part of this whole kit is my tack life. These are great because you don't ever need to have someone jump your car or vehicle if it gets stuck or you have a dead battery. It's basically a jump pack. You just lock it on to your vehicle's battery, turn it on, and then start your vehicle, and this will jump it. And what's great about this too is that you may not need it for that, right? However, because this is a jump pack, it has USB cable inlets here, right? And it also has a flashlight, and it has a compass. It has all these little cool things. Like, I will never use this compass, obviously, but in the event that I need to jump the vehicle at night, then at least you can light things up and you can see where you're putting your connections. But what's great about this is the fact that there's also USB ports, so that if I needed to charge stuff and all my other batteries are dead, last resort, I still have this. They're great, comes with all the accessories that you need, all that's in here. So speaking of emergency roadside kit, my recovery kit. No, look at that, the little O is missing. I'm gonna have to fix that. But basically, this is the kit that will hold a lot of my accessories when I finally get a winch, right? Now, I can't put everything in here. I mean, it's pretty small, but at least my shackles and things like that can go in here. First thing is leather gloves. Get yourself leather gloves, right? It's not just for, winching somebody out or, handling the winch rope and things like that. During the hurricane, again, there's gonna be a lot of debris that's gonna be left behind, and we needed to move some stuff. In fact, we had to kind of pull the fence because it was dangling now, and I'm not going to do that with my bare hands. Get yourself a pair of leather gloves, because also, if you're picking things up off the ground, debris and things like that, you don't know what's in there. There could be splinters, there could be shards of metal. Have yourself a pair of leather gloves. They're not expensive. Grab a pair and have them with you at all times. If you're not going to have a winch on your vehicle yet, at least have a recovery strap. But this is basically the ARB recovery strap. And I love this because you can use this to get yourself out of a lot of nasty situations. Now, granted, it's not going to be as good as having a winch. If, let's say, you're driving and you're trying to get home and there is a tree that's blocking the road, right? Now, depending on the size of that tree, if you don't have a winch, you might still be able to just attach this to your tow hooks and strap it out of there, right? This will also come in handy if you need to pull somebody out of the water, right? There's so much things that you could use with this as far as helping people or helping yourself get out of nasty situations. So if you don't have a winch yet, at least pay, the 60, 70 bucks and get yourself, I mean, you can even get it cheaper than that, get yourself a really good recovery strap to at least have that security. So continuing with things that you could find in my trunk, your tools. Now, this is the smaller, scaled down version of my tools. There's a lot more stuff that I normally bring. I just didn't want to go over all of that. I'm not going to go over the tools that you should have in your vehicles. There's tons of videos you can watch about the kind of necessity tools that you should already always have. I just have my, basics in here, everything from screwdrivers to wrenches to, sockets and things like that. It's just common sense, man. Like, even for day-to-day driving, having a good set of tools is paramount in case you get yourself into trouble. First aid kit. I won't go over the contents of it now because I want to do a whole video on just the contents of the first aid kit. I'm just waiting to get more stuff. A friend of mine who is the medical director of the ER, and also my wife who works in the ER, said if your emergency first aid kit is not overflowing, if you're not having a hard time closing it and when you open it things come spilling out, then you don't have enough. And I clearly don't have enough. I need to pack this with a lot more stuff. And they said that once you pack it and you can't even close it anymore, then that tells you you have enough in there. So speaking of kits, there's also my emergency toolkit. Now, I won't go over the contents of this either because I want to do a whole separate video on this as well. But this is the kit that I just keep in my glove compartment all the time. And these are just small little things that, you might find handy. Everything in here is like an extra flashlight. I got an adjustable wrench. I have, nail clippers and, tweezers. I have an extra lighter. I have a Sharpie. I have multi-tools, box cutter, clamps, another pocket knife. Having a kit like this, just stationary in your vehicle, will come in really handy. Not just for overlanding, but in the event of emergency situations and you need that extra thing, it's all right here. Lighting. Now, this is not the gamut of everything I have. I mean, I have a ton of flashlights everywhere. I have, a ton of little lanterns everywhere. But I wanted to show you at least, if you don't have a lot of lighting, then at least get two major ones, right? So one being a lantern. It's great because it's a lantern. I can walk around the place and look for things like an old man. Where are you? Obviously, you're not going to carry this everywhere, so you have to have a flashlight that's on you. This one's an O-light, but rather than the other O-light flashlights, this is a really smaller one that comes with a clip, and it's pointed this way. Like, it's not a flashlight like this. What's great about this is I've found that I can now use this if, when during a hurricane or post-hurricane and you need to get around in the dark, I don't need to have to hold my light. I can actually just clip this onto a shirt, or if I'm doing photography, I can just clip this on. I can see what I'm doing with my camera. Like, that's why I decided to get a light that points this way, because now it acts as a lantern. I can put it in my backpack, it just lights the way. If you don't want to put it anywhere there, it also comes with the head straps. You could just put this inside the head strap, wear it on your head, and then it works just fine. I have a bunch more other flashlights floating around everywhere else, but if you're gonna have minimally some lights, then at least have like a major lantern that you can use, and also at least a flashlight that's on your persons. Cooler. It's pretty small, right? But it does fit in the vehicle really nicely. I mean, you have to have a really good cooler, right? Electricity is out. Again, you're gonna need to keep ice, and this is good at keeping ice, keeping things cold. So have a really, really good cooler for emergency situations. Not the rinky-dinky $5, $10 ones. There's a really big difference. I mean, this is overpriced, but there's a really, really big difference between the little rinky-dinky red-blue ones that you buy for like $5 versus something like this that can actually hold the coldness in. Water solution. So we bought this. It's 2 gallons. We would bring this camping with us, and we loved it. But it turned out to be really helpful during hurricanes. Because understand that during hurricanes, not just will power go out, but also water might get cut off, right? That's what happened to us. And so when you have water cut off, now they tell you before they shut off water is to make sure you fill all your bathtubs with water. You don't want to drink that stuff. This is for drinking. Fill it up with drinking water and you are good to go for at least a couple of days before you have to refill it. Now, we talked about fuel that's on my vehicle. This is one of those things that I bought that's now in my trunk that I absolutely love. I love my Wavian jerry cans. I do. And they come with a spout. The spout leaves a lot to be desired, though. Like, you have to kind of push the nozzle to get fuel flowing, and it's just kind of awkward. It's so heavy. It's like 50 pounds each, and you're trying to hold that like right above your, your fuel tank, and you're just sitting there holding it and trying to get that thing to. It's just a pain. So I bought a self-siphoning tube. Now, what does self-siphoning mean? You hear that? Because this is not one of those things where you have to, suck in and then put it into your fuel. I mean, you don't want to be sucking in, fuel fumes, right? You don't want to be accidentally swallowing it either. What's great about this is you just keep the jerry cans where they are above your vehicle, and then, your gas tank is right below. And then you just put this up and you put it inside the opening of your jerry cans and you wiggle like that. And the ball bearing that's in here will start to pump the gas out, and then gravity will take over and you can fill up your gas tank without having to take your jerry cans off of your roof. Because that's also kind of dangerous. I've had to like lift my jerry cans back onto the roof or remove them from my roof, and when they're 50 pounds like that, I mean, you could fall and really hurt yourself. Have this, because then the jerry cans stay up there, there's fuel up there, and then all I gotta do is kind of tilt them upwards, open the spout, put this in, and then just start. Fire extinguishers. Now, this one's broken. Right? I just wanted to prove my point because mine is actually in the Jeep already. Have one on hand because, again, things are going to be crazy after a storm, and fires might get started. I mean, something might happen to your generator, right? Your gas generator, something, like fuel drips, and then somebody, lights it up on fire or something by accident. You better have something to put that fire out. So having fire extinguishers or some way to put out fires is always a very big necessity to have with you in emergency situations. Now, this is just fun to bring. I know you're gonna say, well, what the hell is that, and why is that even, an overlanding thing? I just really wanted to show it off. This is the Bug Assault. If you don't know what it is, it basically shoots salt pellets at flies. If you see a fly, you don't have to come near it. See? Awesome. And then it makes you feel badass killing flies. When the electricity is out at your home after a hurricane, you're probably going to open up some of the windows, open up the garage door, let the breeze kind of filter through, because after a hurricane, sometimes there is a breeze that's coming through from the hurricane, right? And it feels kind of cool. So you don't want to be stuck in the house. You want to open up the windows, you want to open up the garage doors, and you want to open up all your doors, and suddenly flies are coming in. And so it's just good to have something to eradicate pests. And you can do it with a fly swatter, and I like to do it with a bug assault. It's just more fun this way. So another thing that is not overlanding related, but I think is super important, is a briefcase safe. You don't bring this overlanding with you, but in a situation where you need to evacuate somewhere, you need to be able to take your documents with you, right? Because you just don't know what's going to happen at your home. If you live in the West Coast and you're evacuating from a fire, well, what if the fire ravages your home, right? Sadly, that can happen. If you live here in the South and there's a hurricane coming, well, what if the hurricane destroys your home? You could lose all the most important things to you, right? So always have a copy of everything. So I made a copy of all of our important documents, from social security cards to, insurance policies to birth certificates. I don't have to think about, oh, what do I need to get this? Maybe I should get that. No, it's already all packed in here. Makes it so much easier to just get all of our stuff and get the hell out, and we have all the information we need. What I also did though is not just have copies of everything there, but also have it all on a flash drive. Having it on a flash drive makes it easy because now all your documents are in here. But the reason why you don't want to just rely on this is because let's say you need to access these files and there's no electricity and your laptop is dead and there's no way for you to access what's on this drive. Well, you still have hard copies of everything that you can look at, but it's also good to have this because then you can just pack this flash drive up with all the documents that you can possibly need, because it has space for all of that stuff, and now everything is all compact and in here. And all of that is just all kept in the safe, nice and locked, and I'm ready to go when I'm ready to go. So that's pretty much it for the stuff that I brought with me. Now, am I missing a lot of stuff? I mean, yeah, obviously. Every storm, I'm learning more and more about what I need for the next season. Number one, I want to make sure I get a winch. A winch would be very, very helpful in getting us out of stuck situations, or even helping people who are in stuck situations. There are going to be people who, are stranded on the side of the road, and there are people who may have gotten blown out by, by a flash flood, and now their car is tipped over or something. And having a winch would just help me get people out of the way, also get debris out of our way if we need to get somewhere. So the second thing that I want is a lift, wheels, and tires. Like, I should have done this a long time ago. I've done all these mods and I've just neglected to do wheels and tires because it just felt like it was so expensive that I couldn't get to that point. But that should have been the first mod that I should have done to my vehicle when I first got it. Why is that helpful in a hurricane situation? Well, I mean, there's debris on the road. Now, obviously, you don't want to just drive over the debris because you think you can clear it. There could be nails and other things like that inside there. So you have to be very careful. But if, let's say, you just see like tree branches and things like that, you can possibly clear, then that will help having that. You don't want to drive through flood, no matter what size or lift you have on your vehicle. Like, even if you say, oh, well, I have a snorkel. No, never drive through a flood. Like, that's the one thing that we who live in hurricane prone areas are taught from the very beginning. So your tires are filled with air, right? They're gonna float. So once you drive through slowly through like flood, well, that water is gonna lift those airy tires of yours. And before you know it, you don't have contact with the ground, and now the flood's taking you wherever it wants to take you. So never drive through a flood, but it's still very imperative that by the end of the year, I should at least have my lift, wheels, and tires ready. So speaking of wheels, lift, and tires, then I also have to get myself Max Tracks. Max Tracks would have been great in this situation. Our whole neighborhood was muddy. There were some vehicles that on regular roads got stuck because the mud was so thick. With storm surge and everything like that, all that sand is going to come inland. Having Max Tracks would help in that situation. And the next thing I want a fridge. I wish I had a fridge, man. Like, how much better would it have been after the hurricane when the power is out to have had a fridge in my Jeep, right? Like, instead of us having to go look for ice and look for ways to like keep our food cool, we could have at least put some essentials in there, and I could have said, this is rated to run for 4 or 5 days like we would on an overlanding trip, so, power should come back on by then. Let's just keep some stuff cool in this fridge. Like, that would have been awesome to have, you guys. So I definitely want to try to get a fridge, in the next few years or so. Speaking of fridge, camp kitchen. Now, this is iffy. For the most part, wherever you're going to be evacuating to might be to someone's house. And hopefully that person already has a grill. So if a person already has a grill, in their home, then you don't really need to bring a stove with you. Now, if you're evacuating to like someone's apartment, they don't have a backyard or anything like that, then yeah, go ahead and bring a stove with some extra propane. For the most part, whenever we evacuate, we usually evacuate to someone else's house that's not as dangerous as where we live, right? So we evacuate there. We know the power is probably going to go out. And in that case, we have charcoal and we have our grill already all set up over there, and we can just cook on that. So I never have to bring my own camp kitchen with me. And the next thing I want is to be able to carry more water in my Jeep. Now, earlier I showed you the Stanley that we use for camping, holds about 2 gallons, but I need to be able to bring more water on the Jeep with me. I know Front Runner makes one that goes at the foot of the back seat of your vehicle, and it holds, I believe, 11 gallons. So that's awesome. So I'm probably going to get something like that, and that I can just keep in the vehicle that's already filled with water when we're ready to go and use it for emergency situations. In that sense, I also do want to get something that will filter the water, but I need to get some solution that we can have more water when the water gets cut off like it did with us. I also want to get a double battery system, right? This storm taught me that, you know what, you need to find a way to get more power. Like, especially if I get a fridge, I'm gonna need to run that. You're basically treating these emergency situations the same way you would if you're overlanding, right? No power, no electricity, no water. You're basically having to fend for yourself in some way, shape, or form. So having a double battery system to run those auxiliary lights, to run the fridge, to power up certain things, it's just going to be a lot more beneficial. So I'm definitely going to get myself a double battery system soon. All right, so I know this video is starting to get a little long, but I promise I only have 2 more things I want to bring up with you, and then we'll be done. And that is the things that you bring overlanding that you don't necessarily need to pack for emergency situations, right? Like certain things that you just don't need to bring. Like you have so much more to worry about trying to evacuate somewhere. You don't need to bring this stuff. So the first thing is your kitchen utensils. Now, if you already have all that packed away in your rig, great, you just bounce, you don't have to think about it. But like us, we have them in these rigid toolboxes that I think I showed you on my last camping trip. It has like, my spoons and forks, knives, things like that. For the most part, when you evacuate, you're gonna be evacuating to somewhere further away, but you're not gonna go overlanding, right? You're probably gonna go to a hotel, or you're gonna go to a friend's house, and all those comforts of home are already going to be there. Right. So when we stayed at my friend's house, yeah, power went out and everything like that, but we still had our utensils. We had, plates, we had pots and pans, we had all that. So I didn't need to bring my overlanding version of that stuff. So not only do you not need to bring your kitchen stuff, then you also don't need to bring overlanding living stuff per se, right? Like you're going to go to a place where you're probably going to stay in someone's guest room, or you're going to stay in a hotel room. So rooftop tent, you're not going to need it, right? If you have your rooftop tent is already on your vehicle, then that's great. In fact, though, if you have your rooftop tent on your vehicle, I would suggest taking it off and storing it somewhere. Just don't store it in the garage, because if your garage floods, then it's gone. Store it somewhere where you know it'll be safe. But the reason why I say that is because after the hurricane, you're probably going to need to bring lumber to your home to do some repairs. So unless you have like a pickup truck or whatever, I have a Jeep. I need my roof rack as cleared as possible so I can use that to put the things that I need to rebuild my home with. So if you have a roof rack tent, you might want to consider just removing it, putting it away somewhere, and then having your roof rack available for the things that you're probably going to need to bring back and forth. Funny thing is, I wanted to do this video now because I had all this stuff out because another storm is coming. Sucks. Like we are just now getting over one of them, and there could be possibly another coming this way. We know how to evacuate, we know how to prepare, we have checklists. We are very, very good in, well, some of us are very, very good in knowing what to do when a storm is coming. It's kind of turnkey already to just know where to go and what to do. And I think that's why I got into overlanding. I think what drew me to overlanding is the whole survival element of it. Having knowledge in survival from hurricanes and things like that, and preparing, transitioned really well into overlanding as a hobby. Overlanding is a mindset. It's this mindset of being prepared and also getting to actually use the tools that you buy for preparation. I don't want to buy all these things and then put them away and just use them when it's for emergency only, because when that time comes, if I hadn't had time to really practice with the tools I had, I may not know how it works. I'm going to be sitting there pulling out instruction manuals. Oh, how do I get this jackery to work again? And how do I, oh, I never use this. This is for emergency. Overlanding allows you to get to use your stuff, right? It allows you to get all your preparation stuff and then actually use it and practice with it so that when the real emergency comes, you already know what to do. You know how your gear works. I think people who buy stuff just so that they can say they have it because they're gearheads, but they never use it because they're afraid to, and they're afraid it's going to get dirty and used, then what are you buying it for? Like, you buy this stuff so that you can actually enjoy it and use it and not just put it aside for emergencies. Start turning your mindset a little bit and start buying things and doing mods that have double purpose. Like whenever I do mods to the Jeep or whenever I buy new gear, I love gear, right? But stop buying gear and doing mods just because that's what everybody else is doing and it's like, oh, it's cool. Find out if it really has purpose aside from just the overlanding stuff, because you'll find that, when things hit the fan, right, you're prepared and you have that, right? But at the same time, having just emergency stuff and not doing anything with it, I mean, it's kind of just, it's a waste. You don't get to practice with it. Buy stuff with dual purpose. Have dual purpose with everything, that you are not only using it just for overlanding, but you also know how to use it when, things get crazy and you know exactly what to do. Have a plan for both. You always have to have a plan. When it comes to overlanding, you're planning your route, you're planning your trails. Well, when it comes to, evacuation, you're gonna have to have a plan there too. Like, how are you going to sustain yourself when the electricity goes out? How are you going to sustain yourself when there's no water supply? How are you going to sustain yourself when, you're far from, all the cell phone signals are out? And how are you going to communicate with people? Everything that you think about in overlanding also applies to emergency situations. But what's good is being able to overland is fun. And you get to practice with your stuff, and you get to spend time with family and create memories. And all that practice that you're doing with overlanding, all that fun stuff that you're doing with overlanding will automatically shift over when an emergency strikes and you are prepared and ready and you know exactly what to do and where to go. So that's it. I mean, that's pretty much the video. I know it's a little bit long, guys, but there was a lot that I had to cover. I hope you got a lot out of it, though, because I got a lot out of it just talking about it, right? It made me really realize the things that I'm missing and the things that I need, but also at the same time, the things that I have that I haven't had a chance to use yet. I am praying and hoping that this new hurricane will not hit us directly. But if it does, I'm ready and I'm prepared, and I hope you are too. Don't forget to like this video. Make sure to share it with people. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, please, because I'm trying to grow it. I'm seeing it grow all the time, so which is really great. People are starting to follow this stuff. And also in the comments below, let me know what you have in your overlanding kit that also translate really well to emergency situations. Give me some ideas that I might be missing. Let me know, man, because if I see something on there, I'm like, oh, hey, you know what? I'm missing that. I should go get that. Thank you guys for hanging out with us, and I will see you next time.
GoPro, stop recording. GoPro, stop recording. Dang it!